Welcome everyone to Week 6. Today we're building your Incident Crisis Playbook. Now I know what you might be thinking. Planning for a crisis feels a little like planning for failure. But it's exactly the opposite. This is about engineering resilience. A solid, well-rehearsed crisis plan is really the mark of a mature and, most importantly, a legally defensible AI governance program. So let's get started.
All right, let's just jump right into the deep end. Imagine this. You get an alert. An AI tool has just leaked patient data. What is your first move? The phone is ringing, alerts are flashing. Your gut reaction might be to call the lawyers, maybe yank a server out of the wall. But here's the thing, in a high-pressure situation like that, gut reactions can make a bad situation a whole lot worse. The correct first move isn't one single action. It's the deliberate activation of a protocol you've already approved. You see, your crisis playbook doesn't just activate out of nowhere. It's the final, very intentional step in a 4-stage trigger sequence. Let's walk through it. First, there's detection. You find an unauthorized tool, or you realize that protected health information, PHI, has been accessed. Second, assessment. You immediately check this against the risk heat map we built back in Week 2. This is a data-driven check, not a guess. Third, initial defense. You hit the kill switch we designed in Week 4, which halts the system. Only then, as the fourth and final step, do you deploy this playbook. The whole process is designed so you can act with confidence, without trying to read dense CPRA and HIPAA legalese in the middle of an emergency.
Now, this whole response follows a really clear 7-day life cycle. Think of this as your roadmap from crisis to control. We're going to break it all down. Phase 1, that critical first 24 hours, is all about containment. Phase 2, which covers the next couple of days, is for investigation. And finally, Phase 3, which rounds out the week, is all about reporting and recovery. Let's start with Phase 1.
Okay, those first 24 hours are without a doubt the most critical part of this entire process. When that alarm goes off, you have one goal and one goal only: to stop the bleeding. This isn't the time to find out who's to blame or to have all the answers. It is all about immediate, decisive damage control. So the core strategy here in the containment phase is to act fast, even if you don't have all the information yet. You just can't afford to wait for a full forensic report while your data is still being exposed. In your organization, this means you move right away to isolate the threat, you cut off all vendor access connected to that tool, and you execute those emergency shutdown protocols we planned. Believe me, in this initial phase, speed is your #1 asset.
So what does this actually look like for your clinic or your nonprofit? Well, here is your tactical checklist for those first 24 hours. Number 1, activate the kill switches we built in Week 4. 2, sever vendor access. I mean it. Revoke their API keys, block their IP addresses. You aren't asking them to stop. You are forcing them to stop. 3, quarantine the data. Lock down any affected databases or servers. 4, escalate internally to your IT lead and your designated AI compliance officer. And 5, halt any automated decisions. If that compromised AI is involved in, say, patient scheduling or diagnostic support, you pause it immediately. We have to prevent any further harm.
All right, now that you've got the situation contained, the entire posture of your response team is going to shift. The immediate fire is out. Now the methodical, careful work of investigation can begin. The goals for the investigation phase are really threefold. First, you've got to map out the full scope of the exposure. What data was touched, and whose data was it? Second, you need to trace the AI's decision pathways to figure out how this even happened. And third, with that information in hand, you can start to really accurately assess your legal liability. This is the point where your team switches from being first responders to being detectives. Now this slide right here illustrates the single most important question you're going to ask during the investigation phase. Did the AI tool access or ingest any protected health information? Your answer to this question determines your entire legal path forward. A yes immediately triggers your Week 2 heat map scoring, it puts you into a formal HIPAA breach protocol, and it legally requires you to notify the Attorney General. If the answer is no, well, you still have CPRA requirements to think about, but the severity and the notification duties are very different. This flowchart is your guide through that decision.
So you've contained the incident, you've investigated the cause. We now enter the final phase of our crisis lifecycle: reporting and recovery. This is where you fulfill all your legal obligations, you communicate strategically with all your stakeholders, and critically, you close the loop to make sure the same crisis doesn't happen all over again.
This phase is really about moving your organization from that reactive firefighting posture to one of controlled, documented recovery.
This means you're going to deploy those legally required communications, update your internal risk architecture, which is, your heat map, and formally sign off on the incident log.
Your tactical checklist for this final phase really ties all of our previous work together. On day 4, you're deploying the required legal notices. On day 5, you update your week 2 heat map, rescoring the AI tool that failed, and it's probably going to a permanent red status. Day 6 becomes a teachable moment. You're going to mandate that any affected staff retake their certification modules. And finally, on day 7, you finalize that incident log, storing the complete timeline in your compliance dashboard for any future audits.
Okay, let's talk about communications. During a crisis, your communications can't be a chaotic scramble. They have to be a strategic, legally mandated deployment. This matrix right here is going to be your guide. It outlines 4 very distinct communications, each with a specific recipient, a trigger, and a legal justification. Let's break down each one.
Communication number 1, this goes out in phase 1, straight to your software vendor. And I want you to notice the tone here. It's combative and legal. This is not a polite request. Citing your rights under the California Privacy Rights Act, you are formally directing them to stop all data processing and to provide you with complete access logs within 24 hours. This is a crucial step for establishing a clear legal record right from the very beginning.
Now, your second communication is to your board of directors, and the tone is completely different. It's objective and reassuring. The goal here is to show control and to fulfill your fiduciary duty. You state that containment protocols worked, the threat is isolated, and a formal investigation is underway. This builds confidence with your leadership. It doesn't create panic.
Communication 3 is the one that's absolutely non-negotiable if a data breach is confirmed. This is your formal notice to the California Attorney General. The tone is strictly formal and compliant. This is the official notification required under CPRA or HIPAA, and following this protocol to the letter is what protects your organization from some pretty significant fines and regulatory heat.
And finally, you have to communicate internally with your staff. The tone here is instructional and firm. You let the team know that access to the tool is suspended. You give them an alternative workflow, and you reinforce the policy that absolutely no unauthorized AI tools are to be used. This memo brings back operational order, and it strengthens your internal compliance culture.
So let's just take a step back and review. Over the course of 7 days, this playbook has guided your organization through a really clear, structured plan. You've moved methodically from the initial chaos of an alert all the way to a state of complete documented control.
And this is what success looks like. This completion tracker is your evidence. Triage is complete, all the required communications have been sent out, and your systems have been updated. Every single box is checked. This is your proof of a well-managed incident, and it's the final deliverable for week 6. Crisis contained. Okay, let's pause for a quick knowledge check. I want you to really think about this for your own organization. What is the single biggest risk if that initial 24-hour containment phase is skipped, or even just delayed? Well, the answer is an uncontrolled blast radius. A delay means more data gets exposed, your legal liability gets bigger, and you could lose trust with regulators. It just makes the recovery so much harder. Everything really hinges on the speed and precision of that first day.
And that brings us to our final and maybe our most important takeaway from this module. A crisis plan isn't a document that you write once and then just file away in a binder somewhere. It's a drill. It is muscle memory that your organization has to build through practice, through tabletop exercises. Your homework is to take this playbook and begin that process. Because in a real crisis, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. I'll see you for our final session next week.